How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I felt like I had the Monday blues on a Tuesday. It just was a busy couple of days so far at work, but otherwise I've been good. We got a bad storm going on here right now. Came out of nowhere, but otherwise I'm good.
Oh, wow. That's great. Where in the East Coast are you at?
I'm in Baltimore, Maryland.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Yeah, Baltimore, Maryland.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for coming on to my podcast
Mhm.
and recording with me. I appreciate it. I appreciate your
Sure.
time.
Sure.
So, can you tell me a little bit about yourself and your background and what you do? Yeah.
Okay. This part of the episode.
Yes.
Okay, gotcha. Sorry. So my name is Shaquita Johnson, and I am from Baltimore, Maryland. So I am the host and creator of Chronicles of a Virgo podcast. I'm new on this podcasting journey. I began in January of this year, and the motivation behind my podcast was to help others heal and grow into a better healed version of themselves. I'm on my own healing journey. I just really got more engaged in my journey. So I was like, I need to put my voice out there more. And I already had a blog, and I've been wanting to do this podcasting thing for a while. So I was like, you know what? Let me just go for it. And ever since then, it kind of just took off faster than I thought. Besides that, I do have a full-time job. I work in a medical mental health field. I've been in the mental health field since about 2012, 2011, 2012. So I've been doing that type of work. I've done advocacy work with sexual assault victims and domestic violence victims as well.
Mhm.
So that's pretty much my niche of just working in mental health and talking.
Wow, that's really cool. Like you're doing a lot of good work. Um, yeah, I think I started my podcast too, probably. Actually, I just started mine probably like at the end of March. So it's
Mhm.
been like maybe 3.5 months. And yeah, like just the same thing. I felt like I had a lot to give and I wanted to help other people the same. And so I started doing a blog first, but then I realized like not everybody likes reading.
Right.
And so I was like, well, it's still kind of like, I guess, a blog, but like you're listening to it, I guess. And
Mhm.
so now I'm just doing both, but yeah.
It's still beneficial because what I even realized when I started my blog back in 2019, just continue to, as you continue to put the content out there, right, people continue to gravitate to it. And it's, as long as it's available, they'll go see it. The same thing with this podcasting thing. You definitely want to give you your roses because you have an amazing podcast. I've tuned into some episodes and stuff, and it takes a lot of courage to sit down and speak with people um, with the topics that you have discussed. So definitely kudos to you for having this safe space for people like me and other people that have come on here as well.
Oh, thank you so much. And thank you for
Mhm.
listening too. Um, I did want to say like I love the name of your podcast because I'm totally like into astrology type stuff.
Mhm.
Like I'm always like I'm a Capricorn. So I'm always like
Okay.
posting like memes and stuff like I'm such a Capricorn.
Mhm.
So I love it. Yeah.
Yeah, I get that a lot. People ask me where did I get the name from, and it actually was the name of my blog. And when I came up with it, I was like, I'm a Virgo because my birthday is in September. And at the time, it was when I started my healing journal journey. And I was like, I'm going through all these chronicles of life. So let's call it the Chronicles of a Virgo. So I just kind of went with it. And it grew more on me and other people around me. So I was like, okay, I got something going here.
Yeah, it's like really clever and yeah. Um, so I work in the mental health field too. So we have that in common, working in the mental health field. What inspired you to go into mental health and yeah, like just the helping profession and helping other people?
I always knew I wanted to do something that centered around helping people. I was always a helper, putting other people before myself, even at a young age. And when I went to college, one thing my grandmother and my mom said was, whenever you choose your major, make sure it's something that you really love doing. And I started off as a nursing major, and I quickly changed that when I seen the curriculum. And I'm like, oh no, I can't do all these maths and sciences. So I took more psych and sociology classes. I was like, okay, I kind of like this. So I kind of went along with it. And then I changed my major. I moved more into criminal justice because I've always liked law enforcement, but I was also abused as a child, sexually abused for a long time as a child. And I always had this thought in the back of my head that I can go be a lawyer and be an attorney and a nurse somehow. And I was like, I was going to lock up all these sex offenders and different things. So I just continued to run with criminal justice. And then I didn't do law school or anything like that. I did go on to get my master's degree in human service counseling and criminal justice. And at that point, I was already working in mental health. And I was working at a psych hospital here in Maryland. I worked with all types of patients, from dual diagnosis, from children, from the eating disorder, you name it, geriatrics, I've worked with them. And I just continued to go with that because I realized I liked helping people a lot already. So I'm like, I like running these groups. I like putting myself out there in the forefront and speaking and being that positive vessel that sometimes people really need to hear. A person can hear things one time, but maybe that one time that you said it can really change their life. So from that point, I just continue to roll with it. And I've done community case management. Like I said, I've done advocacy work for different sexual abuse agencies and domestic violence. And I've also worked at homeless shelters here in Maryland that stem more towards the domestic violence and sexual abuse in not environment, but survivors. They're survivors. So from that point, I just continue to just stay in that field. And I'm all these years later, I'm still working in it now.
Yeah. And it's like it could be a challenging field to work in. And especially like if you gone through your own experiences, like you said, your own abuse and stuff growing up. Like, how do you separate yourself from that, like while you're working with these survivors and stuff? And like, how has that been for you?
Well, starting out, I didn't know that I had to separate it. I didn't know what it meant to have a balance of my personal life and my professional life. I meshed everything together and I was all over the place. It started rolling out in my relationships with my friends. It started rolling out in my relationships with my family and just with myself. And at the time when I actually was starting out in the field, I hadn't been to any serious form of therapy myself to deal with my own abuse history and just other things I've endured. So I was all over the place, just like some people, masking those feelings and emotions with partying a lot, alcohol, just doing a lot of different things that wouldn't be suitable to me now in the space that I'm in. And my last job that I had, it just became too much. I tried to implement different coping skills because that's was something that I talked so highly about to my patients and my clients who struggle with different mental health issues and just being triggered by the things they've been through. And I couldn't even be consistent in my own life about it. And I actually had to pull myself away from being so much hands-on in the field and step into the position I'm in now, which is a little more relaxed, but I've learned to have a balance, leave work at work. And when I clock out, like I'm home and it's just me, I couldn't do that before. I'm looking at my phone, having coworkers and people call me. If I have to go back to work to calm a patient down, that was me. Now I'm just like, no, my mental health and my peace means everything to me. And even though like I want to continue to help people, I have to be able to fill my own cup before I can help someone else fill their cup. And if I'm not no good to myself, I know for a fact I can't be good to someone else, So now in my personal life, besides that, I have different things that I do to upkeep myself, like working out, my meditation, just filling myself constantly with positive personal development and just inspirational things to keep me grounded.
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds amazing. And that's really good. I agree with that, like, especially in the helping profession. Like, I feel like a lot of people that go into this type of work have their own story, which motivated them, like, to go into the mental health or whatever. And so I personally, thankfully, like, never had that issue where, I was taking work home with me, like you said, things like that. But it happens. And like I've seen other people, that do have a hard time separating themselves. Like they'll be at home and they'll be like worrying, and things like that. And so, yeah, it is important to take care of yourself and use some of those tools, right? Like the
Right.
meditation and things like that.
And when I
Yeah.
was doing the advocacy work for the sexual assault agencies, I was on a 24-hour advocacy line. So whenever I picked up the shifts or I was assigned the shifts, I was on those shifts for however long for 24 hours. So it was kind of hard for me to do other stuff because you never wanted to be out and about or just exploring different things when you got those calls. Because on those calls, you can get a victim that's really in crisis. You can get an FBI agent. You can get a safe nurse. You never know who you'll get. And you always want to be in a place of privacy. So when I was locked in, I was definitely locked in.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. I can only imagine that, being on call, right? And being out and stuff. What does that look like for you? Or what did that look like for you when you were doing that type of work? I mean, when people call you and they're going through some kind of crisis, like what did you have to do, or what was the type of work that you were doing?
Right. Surprisingly, I still do it. I don't talk a lot about it just because it's more personal. So a lot of people in my personal life don't know that I still do advocacy work for this particular company. I feel like when it involves certain things, you just kind of keep it, on the low. Um, at first it was really challenging because like I said, it's 24 hours. I can get calls in the middle of the night, and I have gotten horrific calls in the middle of the night. And in the beginning, I really didn't know how to take that because I couldn't go discuss things with other people. The agencies, they do have, different personnel that you can talk to if you're bothered or triggered a lot about something. So at that time, I didn't use any of those resources because I never wanted to look weak. I didn't want people to think that I couldn't fulfill that position, even though it wasn't my full-time job or anything. I just wanted to be successful at doing it. But doing it now, I'm more content with it. I'm more comfortable just because I have been able to maneuver my life where I'm at now, just being more grounded. And because I'm more grounded with myself, handling calls like that, or even if I get people to hit me up on a personal level, I'm able to take my own personal feelings out of it and just be present during that time with that call, with that email, just so I can help that person appropriately.
Yeah. Do you also work with the families of people that are going through the crisis, or survivors? Like, do you work with the families too, or is it just the individual?
It will really depend on the case. It's more
Mhm.
so of just the individual because I'm dealing with sexual assault victims and a lot of in domestic violence. And a lot of the time, no one knows that these things have taken place. They may have just ended up at the hospital because unfortunately someone found them or someone forced them to go or they just decided to go. So there may be situations where you can't disclose that information to their families and they sign different documentation so all the information can remain confidential. I've had situations in the past of dealing with family members. Maybe it was just like a parent or a husband, something like that. But nonetheless, many things just stay between you and that victim that calls.
Yeah. Yeah, I can imagine, like, for safety reasons too, right? Like you don't want to disclose too much information and stuff. So yeah, that makes sense.
Yep, because your first thing is you want to make sure that the person on the other end of the phone feels comfortable with talking to you, because it already took them enough courage to conjure up to make that call, to say, hey, I need help. Hey, I'm not feeling good. I need to talk. Something happened, so you never want to get them winded up so they lose that much trust in you, because sometimes you get the same people that call back on those lines. Sometimes you get new people that don't know what to expect, and you have to be able to maintain yourself at that point and walk them through the whole process, especially if it's a very serious, like if it's a serious domestic violence case and they just left their abuser. They don't, at this point, they don't really trust anyone. And the first thought that they could have is, I'm going back home. That may be all they know. So you don't want to tell them the wrong thing, but at the same time, you want to just kind of reassure their safety and reassure their feelings and let them know that, hey, I know you may not feel in the best space right now, but I am here for you, and I'm going to help guide you through this the best way that I can. And one thing that I learned in the beginning of all this is never to make promises, because if you can't keep them, then a lot of times, they'll be like, hey, well, that person told me that they was going to be able to do this, and then you really can't. And I was like, in the beginning, like, well, why would I tell a person I could do something? But now it makes a lot of sense. And I learned that lesson maybe just one time. It wasn't nothing too serious, but you don't want to like make promises, but you do want to reassure them that, they are safe and you can get them more appropriate help that they need.
Yes, I have heard that actually too. Yeah, like at work and stuff. Like especially when I was working with clients and like individually and stuff, like that was something that I had to remember, like don't make promises you can't keep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure. Because like I feel a lot of the clients are already going through like a very like difficult situation, like they're being vulnerable with you, and you want to do like the best you can to help. And
Right.
sometimes like yeah, like you can be like, oh, I could do this, but then just don't do that.
Yeah, and it could get really tricky. Like I said, I worked at a psych hospital, and I was a lead staff on the child and adolescent line. My home unit was the adolescent girls. You want to make promises sometimes so bad because you want them to be on their best behavior. You don't want to have any codes, have to go hands on. And don't get me wrong, some of those things you definitely can keep your promise. However, it can become a repetitive thing. And especially when you're dealing with um, patients that have severe mental illness or patients that have been severely victimized from certain traumatic events, you just want to tread the waters a little lighter.
Yeah. um Having learned what you've learned throughout your journey with like helping other people, who have gone through abuse or domestic violence or whatever the situation, um, is there anything that you look back on and think, oh, I would have done this differently, or in your own journey?
In my journey of helping someone else through something.
In your own journey of healing, like your own inner healing or the way that you dealt with things?
Oh, most definitely. I would have done everything completely different. But the good thing about that is there's no right or wrong to really do I mean, there can be, but in my eyes, I don't really think there's a right or wrong, because when you do things wrong, 9 times out of 10, you're going to find the correct way to do it. I'm very spiritual. I grew up in the church and stuff. And I always say, if you're on the wrong path in your life or doing something wrong, God will find a way to sit you down and make you realize, like, hey, this is not the best path for you. That's what happened in my case. When I first started my healing journey, unfortunately, it was due to a breakup. And I was just all over the place trying to figure out, how do I get through this? What am I going to do to navigate each day? And the things that I thought that I was doing correctly, I was only harming myself more because I was masking my feelings. And until last year, when I found another therapist, she really opened my eyes a whole lot. And I had been in therapy seeing someone else. However, I wasn't letting that therapist fully in, and she wasn't really guiding me like I really needed her to guide me at that point. This therapist that I'm with now has helped me to address my childhood trauma that I have never addressed ever, which had led me to realize that a lot of things and behaviors that I had now as an adult was caused by the things that I experienced as a child. And that was an ugly feeling because I was like, no, this one situation could not have caused this, and this. But in reality, it was. So I wish, honestly, I probably just would have took therapy more serious in the beginning. But coming from a household like mine, in a lot of Black households, mental health was something that was like very frowned upon. There was no depression, there was no anxiety. So growing up, it was like I had to be, and I was looked to be the strong Black woman. And now looking at things and still being on my journey, I'm like, yes, I'm a strong Black woman, but this strong Black woman has her days. I still cry. I still have anxious moments. I still get depressed, but I consider all those moments. And because I'm doing the inner work, and now that I know that it's not about the physical being and all this other stuff on what you see on the outside, it's about everything that's on the inside. I'm in a better space to just properly handle things when they do come up. So overall, I wish I would have just really stuck to therapy, but I don't regret anything along this whole entire journey because at the end of the day, it's made me the person that I'm still growing into now.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. I believe like everything happens for a reason. Even if it's like a bad experience, like I think of it now like, well, what did that experience teach me? Like how did this help me now as a person? And yeah, I mean, with therapy, I agree. I mean, uh, I grew up also thinking like, oh, it's hard to open up about your personal story and your personal self with someone, especially like if it's like your first time going to therapy and you don't really know what it is and you're just like, what am I doing here? But then also, like you said, your upbringing and the views on mental health, right? Like all the stigma and like, oh, you're crazy or whatever.
Right.
So yeah, it definitely takes, at least for me, it also took like more than one try to completely be open to it, because I feel like even when I had good therapists, I was still kind of like holding back, like I was still not wanting to fully open up. But yeah, it's a journey. It's a journey.
It really is a journey. And my therapist is well aware of my podcast and everything that I have going on. And she has been a very supportive part of the journey. And we have discussed certain things, topics that I have talked about because I openly discussed my sexual abuse on my podcast for the first time in open ever. Some things people knew, some things people didn't know. And it took a lot out of me, but at the same time, it didn't, because I guess I was in a better space to talk about it. And one thing that I realized is the more that I talk about things that I probably would never have talked about openly, it makes me feel more relieved. It's like I feel like more weights are becoming lift off my shoulder, And she just continues to encourage me to talk. And I'm like, okay, well, I know they said therapy, talking does help. And I used to think it was real cliche back in the day, even though I am a mental health advocate and I did this work, I've done this work for a long time. I just didn't want to put myself out there, I just didn't. But now I don't regret it. I really don't. And like you said, it is sometimes about finding the therapist, the counselor, psychiatrist, whatever it is, that really works for you, because that person is out there. And sometimes the journey may be a little difficult to really find that individual, but the more you search, you'll definitely find that person. And that's what happened with me.
Yeah, that's great. That's really amazing. And that's something that I feel like people need to be aware about is that, if you find a therapist that you don't like or you don't connect with, you could definitely like change it, work with someone else until you do
Mhm.
find someone that you're comfortable with, right?
Mhm.
And that was going to be one of my questions, not like therapists and stuff, but I wanted to know if there was someone that, or did you have like a mentor or someone that you, um, someone that you really looked up to, or someone that helped guide you? I mean, during your whole healing journey, when you first started, going into this helping profession and stuff like that. Did you have anyone or a mentor or anything?
When I first started in the mental health, I would say it would be my mom because she was an officer working in corrections at the time. And part time, she was doing the same work, working in group homes and working with mental health patients. So I would hear a lot of the stories she would tell or injuries she would come home with. For some reason, I wanted to still do that same type of work. So whenever things, sometimes I really needed a vent about something, I would like call her on break or like when I was off of work just to talk, just to get her perspective on something, or how to move forward with certain things being in this type of environment. And she would always come through with really good information. So definitely my mom. Now, as time has trickled on, I have been blessed to meet some wonderful people that have worked in the different organizations that I have worked in. And I honestly can say that I'm truly thankful because I have not had a bad supervisor. All my supervisors in the different companies haven't been many, but they have been very supportive for the most part. And I met some of my bestest friends doing this type of work. Like we all have done mental health advocacy or advocacy work in general. So it's easier to like have these type of conversations, these like-minded conversations with people because we all can relate to the same stuff. So definitely just people in my family and my friends, I wouldn't necessarily say they were like mentors, but they were definitely a part of my support system at that time and still to this day.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's really great. And yeah, as you go on, um, you just meet so many different people and, that are very like-minded. And yeah, that's really amazing.
Mhm.
Um, Working in the mental health field, I feel like for me, um, some of the things that I've really learned and that I value now that I didn't really think about like when I first started was that people are like really resilient, like people are stronger than they think. And that's like just amazing to me. Like when I, talk to a client and I listen to their story, like it's just truly like an amazing experience because I feel like everyone has like their own unique story.
Mhm.
And I don't know, like I just feel like people are just so powerful and so resilient and like, yeah, I don't even know if I'm describing that correctly, but
No, I definitely understand what you're saying. And being a person that has had my share of ups and downs, been through different trials and tribulations in my life, I always knew that I was strong. And even in the midst of going through what I may have thought was the worst season of my life, and I felt weak, someone that was always lifting me up, telling me I was strong, you know? And until I came out on the other side, and even like now in my life, when I look back, I'd be like, dang, like I really did go through this and I overcame it, So me having that type of mindset for myself, when I still to this day talk to different patients and different people that are going through things, listening to their stories, and then they may or may not be in that situation. And I'm like, do you realize everything that you already came through? Like you've overcome so much, you know, celebrate those small moments because things that we may perceive as being small, you know, they are really bigger than what we give credit to, because unfortunately, a lot of people do not make it out of a lot of situations. A lot of people, they're down a lot longer than others, and just working in the mental health field, I've seen some people that just are, it's it's just bad, and I'm like, well, dag, it made me always wonder, like, how would my life be if I would have never had support? Or like, how would my life be if I would have never got it together? Like, would I be, bed bound, or like, would I be a person that's hospitalized forever? It always makes me just wonder, and it makes me more grateful that I have the people in my life that I do, and that I actually have the resources and the help that I do. And I think now I know how strong I am.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Like sometimes you just don't realize it. Like you said, like just even if it's small things, like it all adds up.
Mhm.
And having someone there to guide you and even like talk to and point things out to you, I think that's really helpful. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think for some people, unfortunately, they've been in that position too long, or for so long, it's comfortable. So anything outside of that is unnormal. And trying to navigate their way through it is uncomfortable. So they don't want to touch that territory of being on the other side. Or they think because their circumstances have looked this way all the time, it's no chance at anything changing. For me, I realized it was a whole mindset thing. And I really realized, like, oh man, like this whole subconscious and conscious mind, like I really got some work to do on myself. Like this whole self-image and my mindset, like I needed a whole lot of work. Like I can admit that. And like I said, I don't regret it. That's why I'm really big on like affirmations, because I had to affirm my way through a lot of things. And I affirm myself every day, and I try to affirm everyone else around me, because if I'm good, then I want everybody else around me to be good, or at least know that you have the potential to be so much better than what you truly are at that point.
Yeah. Yeah, I love affirmations because before it's like, you know, I feel like before, well, at least in my experience, like I would depend on like my partner or relationship to give me affirmations so that I was able to feel like good or worthy,
Mhm.
but you don't need anyone to tell you, you could tell yourself. And so I
Exactly.
love that. What's next for you now? Like, what are you working on, or what do you see yourself doing like in the near future? Like, is there anything that you are looking forward to?
I definitely want to continue this whole podcast adventure. Because like I'm pretty sure you realize, with you starting out, you have been able to connect and network with some really good people. I feel like the more I sit down and talk to people, whether I go on their shows or bring them on mine, I'm always learning something about myself, or always finding potential that I didn't know I possessed. And at this time, I'm in the process of actually looking into different life coaching programs. I know there's a lot of different ones, and I don't want to get into something, messed up. So I've been doing my research on different life coaching programs, just to take a few courses, just to, see how things really flow. Not that I really need the certification or anything, but I do want to probably venture into something more like that. I want to continue to do my advocacy work. In the future, I wouldn't mind doing some speaking engagements if I can get over my little fear of public speaking. But I just want to continue to just overall spreading motivation. It's a lot of it out here, but sometimes, like I said, people may need to really hear things from you. And I'm always going to be that person to encourage somebody, tell your story. You never know. It can help heal you, and it can help heal somebody else. You got a message on your heart, go live on Instagram or Facebook and put that message out. You know, that's how I started this whole journey. I felt like for so long I was not able to speak, and I was in a box. And now that I'm out of my box and I'm really healing my way through, I want to just bring everybody else along this journey, or at least help promote people along their journey. So we'll see where this life coaching thing takes me.
Yeah,
How about you?
that's great. I I'm right now, maybe within the near future, I see myself doing some kind of like mentorship type work. I'm thinking like maybe like a supervisor, or, for up and coming like mental health providers, like something like that.
Mhm.
And then also continuing the podcast. And I don't know, just I'm the type of person that just like goes with whatever comes up, which could be
Mhm.
good, which could be bad. But
Right.
like I think this in January, I had that idea come up where I was like, oh, I want to do coaching, right? Like life coaching. I want to take classes and stuff. And it was just kind of like a spur of the moment thing. And I ended up signing up for like a class and stuff. Yeah. So I feel like just whatever comes up, I guess like I kind of like play it like that.
Mhm.
But I needed to be better. I need to take more time to consider like pros, cons, and everything like that. But yeah,
Right.
but I do see myself doing some kind of like maybe supervisor or mentor role at some point. So
See, someone needs your help out here. Someone needs to continue to hear all that motivation and them positive vibes you be pouring out. So good luck to you in that venture.
thank you so much. Yeah.
Mhm.
Um, what is one, like for someone that may be listening to this episode, like what is one takeaway that you would like people to take from listening to you?
One takeaway that I would like people to take from this episode is to keep going. Keep going. Even if you feel like you are pinned against the wall, walking on needles, you see yourself getting nowhere, getting out of whatever situation or circumstances you may be enduring at this time. Keep fighting your way through, keep praying your way through, just keep pushing through. Don't give up, because giving up is too easy. A lot of times keep moving forward is the hardest part. However, there's always light at the end of the tunnel. There is. So just take it easy. One thing I had to learn, and I'm still continuing to learn to this day, is to give myself some grace, give myself some compassion, give myself love. Three things that I never really thought about, but I can give it to everybody else. I can forgive everybody else, but I wasn't doing those same things for me. And I'm like, well, this is backwards. So I'm like, you know what? Now, the same grace, compassion, and love that you're willing to give other people, turn that around and give that same stuff to yourself. And just know that life is not a sprint, it's a marathon. So, you have time. Just don't give up. Just keep going.
Yeah, I agree that I love that. I think that's important because especially when you're going through something that's like really hard and difficult, um, it could feel like it's just never going to get better. And it could be hard to see that light at the end of the tunnel. A lot of the times people feel alone, like they're the only person going through something, but no, like there's so many other people going through similar situations, like you're not alone.
Mhm.
And there is light at the end of the tunnel, like you said.
Mhm.
It may be hard, it may take a while, but it's there. And so
Mhm.
yeah, like just keep going. um yeah, just keep going, don't give up. Love
Yeah,
that.
and one thing that someone recently actually told me, how she explained it is, she said there are 24 hours in a day. And even though some people say we have the same 24 hours, in reality, we really don't have the same 24 hours, because we all deal with different things during the course of those 24 hours. So how you choose to deal with things in your life during those 24 hours, just make sure the one thing that you don't do is count yourself out. Don't compare yourself to nobody. And I know social media is so good for that. You see everybody with all this different stuff and you're like, well, dang, why can't I get it? Well, why can't you get it? But if you give up, you're never going to know if you can even get to that point or supersede where that person is at, especially when you're on a healing journey. Healing is not linear and it's personal. It's so personal, so never compare yourself to, your best friends or people you see online, or think that because something is working for them, it's not going to work for you. It may not work for you, but you have to find things that do work for you. And you have to find, your tribe of support that's going to help you, navigate really through those hard times.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Where can people find your podcast, or just if they wanted to look you up or just follow up or anything, like where can people find you?
Yeah, so my podcast, Chronicles of a Virgo Podcast, is on Apple, Spotify, Google, Amazon, all of your streaming. Working to get it on Pandora right now. The process takes a little longer, but I am on those. I'm also on TikTok, and I am on Instagram at Chronicles of a Virgo Podcast. So yeah, if you guys find me, if you need some advice, you want to talk, my DMs are always open. My email, I'm always available. Also through email, Chronicles of a Virgo 22@gmail.com. So yeah, I'm always, willing and down to connect with and talk to anyone.
Yeah. Thank you so much for coming on. Like you're so, I don't know, like you put out like such a positive, like aura, like energy, and like, yeah, like I could feel people's energy when I talk to them. And so yours is like very positive and just very relaxing and calming. So thank you for coming on to my podcast.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And again, thank you for giving me this opportunity. In the future, I would love to connect with you again and, have you a part of Chronicles of a Virgo podcast.
Awesome. Yes. That sounds great. Yeah. Thank you.
Sure. Not a problem. But yes, again, thank you so much for this opportunity. I really appreciate it. And to your listeners, thank you for lending me your ear for a little bit.
All right.